We hadn't seen Matt for weeks. At the company, everyone thought he had moved away or that his sister's condition had gotten worse. Even our boss knew nothing, and nobody could reach him. I figured he would at least send a message. After 9 years of friendship, I didn't think he'd just vanish without a word. That's why I was so shocked when he walked into our usual bar on Friday night. He was genuinely happy to see me, and I was stunned. I'd thought maybe he wasn't even alive anymore. We talked for a long time that night. Matt looked a bit tired, but he was still cheerful, full of life, the same eccentric, funny guy as always. We stayed there until closing time. Since I didn't have any plans for the weekend, Matt invited me over to his place. I had been there a few times before. His apartment had always been tidy, sometimes even the site of small parties. He used to invite a few coworkers too, the ones he actually liked. But when he opened the door this time, I was completely shocked by what I saw. A foul stench hit me right away. Piles of garbage bags stood in heaps. The kitchen looked like a war zone. Dirty dishes, leftover food, and rotting scraps were everywhere. Matt? I stopped in my tracks as he opened the door. Are you sure everything's okay? Of course. Why, Dan? Matt shot back instantly. I gestured around the entryway, pointing out that the whole place was a wreck. Just haven't had time to clean up, he said cheerfully with a wave. Come on, let's have a beer. Matt shoved trash out of the way in the kitchen and tried to open the fridge, but a big garbage bag and a couple of boxes blocked the door. Oh, Dan, just give me a sec, he groaned as he wrestled with it. Go ahead, make yourself comfortable in the living room. I'll be right there. Reluctantly, I agreed to leave him in the filthy kitchen. Carefully, I squeezed down the narrow hallway, stepping around the reeking trash bags and boxes. By the time I reached the doorway to the living room, I heard a loud clatter from the kitchen, followed by some cursing and Matt shouting that everything was fine. A little tense, I stepped out of the garbage-strewn hall and into the living room and froze. It was like crossing an invisible line. The living room was spotless, neatly arranged, and even smelled fresh. The furniture gleamed as if it had just been cleaned. Maybe Matt hadn't been lying. Maybe he really was fine after all. Then my feet rooted to the floor. Someone was sitting in one of Matt's armchairs, a figure wrapped in a white robe. I couldn't see its face because it was bowed low, and the long robe covered it completely from head to toe. Only its hands were visible. Long, yellowish nails, ragged and chewed down. It sat there like a king on a throne, its disgusting hands resting on the armrests. I just stood there, speechless. What's wrong? Came Matt's voice from behind me. I turned, startled. Who the hell is that? I asked in disbelief. Oh, don't look at me like that, Matt said cheerfully, handing me a bottle of beer. That's just my roommate. Your roommate? Since when do you have a roommate? I asked, still frozen in the doorway. Not long, he replied, pushing past me into the room. Come on, Dan, sit down with us. An uncomfortable silence settled over the living room. Matt sprawled across the couch, sipping his beer, while the strange figure sat motionless in the armchair, almost triumphant in its stillness. I, on the other hand, was busy looking for a way out. No matter how hard Matt insisted that I sit down, I told him I'd been sitting enough at the office all week and preferred to stand. I started pacing the room. So, how have you been, Dan? Matt asked, taking a swig from his bottle. Well, I answered nervously, my eyes fixed on an old photo on his shelf. I'm fine, really. Everything's pretty much the same. The suffocating silence returned. The easy, cheerful tone we'd had back at the bar was gone. We sat there, awkwardly, three strangers trapped in the same room. Matt, I finally gathered my courage. I think I should get going. I've got something to do tomorrow. At the bar, you said you didn't have anything to do tomorrow. Matt shot back immediately. Oh, right, I stammered. Yeah, it just came to me. Matt took another drink, his eyes narrowing as he stared at me. I stuttered nervously. I really should get going. He sighed heavily, set his beer down on the little coffee table, and looked straight at me, his face suddenly cold. Dan, what's wrong? He asked flatly. I glanced around, tense and uneasy. Every instinct in me screamed to bolt for the door and never look back. Matt, I said at last, it's just, this whole situation's a little weird. The mess out there and everything. Matt looked confused, as if he hadn't even noticed the state of his own apartment. The thought flashed through my mind, maybe his so-called roommate didn't notice it either. And I said more quietly, there's that guy. I told you he's my roommate, Matt replied sharply. When he wakes up, I'll introduce you. He's sleeping? I asked, glancing nervously at the hooded figure. Whatever, Matt. I need to go. I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I turned toward the hallway, but I only managed a few steps. Matt was ready for it. He jumped up, grabbed something from beneath a couch cushion, and before I could react, he smashed a wrench across my face. Blood sprayed from my nose, splattering the wall. 2 teeth shattered. It happened in an instant. I was already on the floor. The world spun. Warm, metallic blood trickled down my face. Dan, I heard Matt's muffled voice. I'm sorry, Dan. This is the angel's request. I came to, disoriented and dazed. The harsh light bouncing off the white tiles stabbed at my eyes. I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision, and my mind. Dan, Matt's voice echoed, distant and muffled, as if it came from far away. Dan, I'm sorry, but I have to do this. I tried to lift my head, but I could barely move. Blood dripped from my mouth and nose in slow, heavy drops. That's when I realized my hands were tied. My vision gradually cleared. Matt was sitting on the edge of the bathtub in front of me. I was bound to the radiator, but the worst part wasn't him. It was the figure standing in the doorway. The white robe covered its entire body. The hood hung so low that its face was completely hidden. Only a wrinkled, dark red neck was visible, like it had been smeared with some kind of dye. The skin looked old, ancient, human and not human at the same time. Its feet were concealed under the robe, and its hands were tucked inside the sleeves. Dan, Matt started again, do you know the Christian Bible? I looked at him. When I moved my head, I felt the wound in my nose reopen, and warm blood began to trickle again. I stared into his eyes, angry, terrified, and yet more furious than afraid. How could an old friend do this to me? So you don't, Matt said when I didn't answer. Then let me tell you a story. Abraham's story. I didn't look away from him. The hatred inside me burned like a fire. How could I have been stupid enough to walk right into his trap? Matt glanced toward the figure in the doorway. It hadn't moved, hadn't made a sound. I see, Matt said to it quietly, as if listening to an order only he could hear. Then I'll do it your way. He stood up from the edge of the tub and stepped closer to me. Dan, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his own son, he said coldly. It was a test of faith. But tell me, did Abraham receive anything in return for his obedience? I said nothing. I didn't understand what he was talking about, where this was going, or when he had turned into a religious maniac. You don't know the answer either, do you? Matt said softly. But I was chosen. I've been given my reward. What the hell are you talking about? I growled, spitting a thick, bloody wad onto the floor. Abigail's better, Matt said sternly. She might even be released from the hospital soon. My eyes widened. Abigail, Matt's sister. She'd been fighting cancer for years. The last time we'd talked at the office, he told me her chances weren't good. Now, after a few weeks, she's suddenly recovering. The religious talk was strange enough, but this was insane. Dan, Matt said again, pausing for effect. It's because of the angel. I brought him offerings. Matt, I shouted, realization cutting through the fog in my head. You're insane. Quiet, he barked. I have proof. My sister's healing. All I had to do was offer simple sacrifices to God and his angel. Simple, I roared back. Killing a person is simple. I haven't killed anyone, he said nervously. Only food. Animals. That's different. For God's sake, Matt, I screamed. Then why the hell are you trying to kill me? I'm not trying to kill you, he said softly, glancing at the white hooded figure. This is Abraham's story, Dan. You don't have to be afraid. Then he smiled at me. Gentle, almost kind, as if I wasn't tied to a radiator, waiting to die. Matt and the strange figure had left me alone. He said he was going to prepare the altar. He'd completely lost his mind. There was no other explanation. And that white-robed thing, it wasn't his priest. Hell, I wasn't even sure it was human. I had to escape before I became the sacrificial lamb. I pulled at the pipe of the radiator, trying to tear loose the rope around my wrists, but it wouldn't budge. Dan, what are you doing? Matt's calm voice came from the doorway. He stood there, watching me struggle with the pipe. In his hand was the same wrench he'd used to knock me out. I let go of the pipe and raised my bound hands as much as I could, surrendering. Matt walked toward me slowly. His movements were calm, natural, like he was getting ready for a weekend cookout, not for a sacrifice. He untied the knot and pulled me to my feet. My hands were still bound, but at least I was free, and I didn't waste the chance. I shoved him hard. He fell backward into the tub, and I bolted for the door like a frightened rabbit. But just as I reached the living room and turned toward the hallway, the door slammed shut in front of me. It sounded like a gust of wind had blown it closed. I grabbed the handle and yanked at it, but it wouldn't move. The handle itself refused to turn. When I turned back, Matt was already climbing out of the bathtub, and the hooded figure had emerged from the living room. For a brief moment, I saw inside, and I knew instantly I'd rather die than go in there. The walls were painted red, probably with blood. Candles burned everywhere, and what looked like animal parts hung from the ceiling. But what mattered most was the sight of my bag on the couch. My phone was inside. I always kept it there. With one quick leap, I reached the bag and grabbed the phone. Matt was still staggering out of the bathroom, clutching his head. The white-robed figure did nothing. It simply stood in the doorway, the hem of its robe floating slightly as if stirred by a breeze. When Matt started toward me, he suddenly froze. It was as if the hooded thing was speaking to him, but I couldn't hear a word. I dialed 911, barely managing to speak before I heard footsteps pounding toward me. It was Matt, charging at me with some kind of strange knife. I couldn't say much into the phone, but I hoped the shouting and struggle would be enough to send someone. Matt slashed at me, the blade sinking into my arm. I screamed in pain and kicked him as hard as I could between the legs. He stumbled back, groaning. He yanked the knife from my arm, and I ran, this time toward the kitchen. but Matt recovered quickly and came at me again. We crashed into the small cabinet by the window, then tumbled to the floor. He grabbed me and punched me hard in the face. I felt something crack in my nose, and blood sprayed across the floor. Then he started hitting me over and over. My head, my ribs, my chest, each blow landing heavier than the last. "Don't you get it, Dan?" he screamed. "God would have saved you at the last second." I could only gurgle blood. My face was a mess, every hit sending flashes of light through my skull. Matt got to his feet, wiping the sweat from his brow, looking around for the knife he dropped. "God damn it, Dan," he shouted. "When I walked into that damn bar and saw you, I knew it was his will. I knew you were there to help me. Why do you have to make this so hard?" He found the knife, picked it up, and kicked me again, hard. I was barely conscious. Blood poured from my face and my torn arm. He grabbed me by the legs and started dragging me back toward the living room across the floor. Through my blurry vision, I saw my phone still glowing on the ground, the emergency line still open. "Help," I gasped, as loudly as I could when I got close to it. "Help me." "God," Matt screamed. "God and his angels, they're the only ones who can help. Don't you see, Dan? The angel is here. He's living with me." He dragged me into the bedroom, thick with the stench of rot, and kicked me again before letting go. The white hooded figure was in the room, or maybe floating. I couldn't tell anymore. My mind was slipping, my vision gone, my only thought begging inside my head. "I don't want to die here." Matt raised the knife high above me. "And now, God will save you," he said, and brought it down. A searing pain tore through my side. I screamed, a broken, gasping sound that barely left my throat, but loud enough for God, maybe, to hear. Because a sound came next, from outside. The door burst open. Matt roared, charging out of the room, the knife in his hand. Gunshots echoed. I stared at the sheep's head nailed to the wall. For some reason, my fading mind wondered where he'd even found it. There were no sheep in this city. I heard the cops entering, shouting, calling for an ambulance. One of them knelt beside me, pressing hard onto my wound, trying to stop the bleeding. His voice was calm, but I could tell he was terrified. I could barely move my head, but I managed to nod weakly. He shouted something to his partner and ran out. That's when I saw it. The edge of a white robe drifting into view. Its hem was dirty, caked with mud, and behind it, the legs. Even through the haze, they horrified me. They weren't human. They looked like the legs of a massive goat, black hooves clicking softly on the wooden floor. We'll meet again, the white hooded figure whispered, leaning close to my ear. The stench hit me, a choking mix of blood, decay, and something ancient. Somewhere deep in my fading mind, I knew this thing was the cause of everything. Until then, it said softly, "Take care of yourself, little lamb." And I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Everyone was shocked. No one had imagined Matt could lose his mind like that. The police said they hadn't found anyone else in the apartment, even after I told them everything. They claimed my mind must have broken under the trauma, but I remember the figure in the white robe, the stench that came from it, and its legs. And I know one thing for certain. It wasn't an angel. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. This is Howl's Eve, and remember, you are never alone in the dark.